Good evening, I'm Vikramoza, and this is The Big Question. Tonight, we're driving into the subject that sits right at the heart of Indian enterprise, our family businesses. And let's be honest over there, this is not just about companies. This is about emotions and legacies, and in many cases, it's about multi-generational dreams that are built from scratch. But here's the interesting part. According to this brand new PwC survey, India's family businesses, they're actually charging ahead globally. 91% of them are confident about growth. That's far higher than the global average. And more than half are planning to expand aggressively. So yes, the India story is alive and kicking when it comes to the family-run businesses. But then comes the twist. When it comes to technology, that same survey is showing that 39% of Indian family firms are prioritizing digital transformation and AI, but 1 in 4 are still not seeing tech as a priority at all, which is 3 times the global average. That's like driving a Ferrari, but refusing to switch on the GPS. And while the growth ambition is world-class, the governance structures, well, not quite there yet. Over half do not have cross-industry representation on their boards. 42% have no women. And many boards do not have anyone under the age of 40. So the people making those decisions often look very similar, and they have for decades. Succession is another big one. Anyone who has ever tiptoed around a family dinner table would know this. Passing the baton is never an easy process, and resistance from the senior generation. There are differences in vision. There is an even bigger problem of the next generation not very interested in joining the business. So these challenges are piling up for family-run businesses in India. And when these issues are not managed well, we've seen actually what happens. From the Kapoor family at Sona Comstar, to the Singhdanias at Raymond, to the Murugappas. These family feuds have spilled into boardrooms and courtrooms, and eventually they've come into the public domain. Which is why the big question today, the question is about Indian family firms. Are they future ready or not? Are we doing enough to be future ready or not? Because many of our listed entities as well are from that particular bracket. So there are the green flags, there is the growth, there is a lot of optimism, there are a lot of family values as well, which are good for the growth of a company. But what about the red flags? Because tech adoption seems to be slow. When you're talking about succession planning, it's not top-notch at this time. So where are the questions and where are we lagging? We have a powerhouse panel to discuss this with. Let me introduce you to them. Tonight on the show, we have Devendra Parlikar joining us. He's founder of Saffron Stays, and he brings us that fresh kind of perspective on how exactly it's panning out. Gurcharan Das is also with us, author and former CEO of P&G India. Along with them, we have Dr. Srinath Sridharan, author of Family and Dhanda. He's advisor to business families and boards. Ajay Bagga, market expert, is also joining us on this discussion to tell us about the market perspective between family-run businesses and what we often call professionally run businesses. Talking about legacy concerns, we've got Chandubhai Virani, founder-director of Balaji Wafers Private Limited. And Srinivas Kuchibhotla is also with us. He's partner at Deloitte India to give us that consultancy perspective on how these firms are actually treading these waters right now as the changes are happening, as technology, etc. There is that much more adoption. So gentlemen, thank you for making the time. And to set the ball rolling, let me ask you a round of pointed questions, but I need your very short answers to begin with so our viewers know where you stand on the subject. If I can begin with Mr. Das. In one line, sir, tell us what you think Indian family businesses are at this time. Are they future ready, or are they still trying to play the catch-up game?
Well, they're in a protected market. And so there isn't the incentive to invest in technology. There isn't the incentive to invest in R&D. And there isn't an investing to become global players.
Yes.
And that, I think, is the heart of the problem.
Ajay Bagga,
I'm very happy to see this PwC report.
Yes.
I think it's very positive, but that is the problem.
We have a long way to go still. Mr. Bagga, in one line, from your perspective, as someone who watches the market so closely, would you say you're overweight or underweight on the family-run groups versus the professionally managed peers?
No, professionally managed peers have a big performance premium. So
Yes.
they do much better. But family firms are catching up, so we can't do a broad brush paint of them. But Mr. Das, summarized it well. I would add to that that as the next gen comes in, there is some talk of technology. The accounting and the lack of transparency that they thrive under, the older generation is not keen to bring in the transparency that technology will bring in. So that also becomes an issue. And especially in finance, Vikram, what I've seen, when the newfangled, foreign management has come in, or foreign bank management has come in traditional NBFCs, we have seen disasters. And then the old guard has taken over again and cleaned up. So it's more nuanced. You can't do a broad brush.
Not a broad brush here, but Mr. Parulekar, from where you stand as a first-gen founder, taking away from what the first two gentlemen on the panel have said, what is your moat over the legacy groups? Is it speed? Is it technology? Is it brand trust? Or is it sheer capital?
So money loves speed. And, our startup is all about speed and agility. Having said that, I used to be a partner a decade ago in EY. So I come from the professional world into a family-run business, right? So it's my family which is running the business. So we are proudly a family-run business for the families of India to either give their homes to us or to holiday with us. So we are proudly family-run, and we would love to, in fact, we proudly advertise the fact that being in hospitality, if it's a family, it's one family hosting another family.
Right. So there is this broader definition of what is a family-run business as well. But we'll stick to the legacy businesses as we understand them in India, as opposed to the new age businesses for the purpose of this debate. But Dr. Sridharan, in one line, if I were to ask you what's the single biggest roadblock that you see for the smooth succession that we need in Indian family firms, is it the mindset issue? Is it a governance issue?
I think it's a mindset issue. Just to take on Mr. Das's statement, I think if I were to kind of do the rhyming words, I mean, there is a moat available in terms of legacy, in terms of access to the power, policymakers, politicians. So which is why we don't see much of Indian goats, so to speak, greatest of all times in global businesses, except for a few outliers. And the new age businesses like, let's say, Saffron Stays and others, or the other startups are kind of rocking the boat for family businesses. But having said that, I'm very bullish on family business. Simply 80% of our GDP comes from family businesses, whether they're conglomerates or kiranas. But mindset issues still persist. And that's the same even in the startup. I call them, with no disrespect for anybody, I think some of the startups, despite being unicorns, behave like the modern day Lalas. And we generally keep cribbing that the Lala community has a sense of entitlement and hierarchy issues.
Let me take that across to Chandu Bhai. Chandu Bhai, आप क्या समझते हैं स्टार्टअप्स और आपके जैसे फैमिली रन बिजनेसेस में सबसे बड़ा फर्क क्या है?
नहीं, फर्क तो समय के साथ जो थोड़ा थोड़ा फर्क होता है। हमारे पास क्या था, कुछ नहीं था, ये मानसिकता था, कुछ करना है
जी।
तो हमारा फोकस रहा एकदम, क्योंकि हमारे पास ऑप्शन नहीं था, ना पैसा था ना एजुकेशन था, तो हमारा एक फोकस हो गया। ये बिजनेस नहीं था हमारा, उसको बना दिया,
ऑर्गेनिकली बन गया या सोच और समझ से और स्ट्रैटेजी से बना?
स्ट्रेटजी से बना, स्थिरता से बना, एक स्थिरता से समझ आ गई हमको। हमने सारा काम किया है, हमने एक एक पैकेट बेचा, फिर वो सप्लाई नहीं बनी तो हमने आलू चुन चुन के लाके, आदमी बनाते थे, नहीं थे तो हम खुद बनाने लगे, फिर वो बाइक से बेचा
जी। तो
एक पूरी समझ आ गई हमारी। तो समझ कैसे आ गई कि हमारे पास और करने के लिए दिमाग नहीं था, एक ही दिमाग था, जो हाथ में आया उसको कुछ भी करके बनाना है।
करेक्ट। और
तो
उसको अच्छा बनाया आपने,
बना दिया, बिजनेस नहीं था।
करेक्ट। लेकिन अभी आप देखते हैं प्रोफेशनली रन जो स्टार्टअप्स होते हैं, जो जिस तरह से वो बिजनेस करते हैं और जैसे आपने शुरुआत की, उसमें आप सबसे बड़ा फर्क क्या देखते हैं?
फर्क ये है कि आज जल्दी चाहिए तो कहीं जल्दी हो भी जाता है, कहीं जल्दी में एक्सीडेंट भी हो जाता है।
एक्सीडेंट भी हो जाता है, जल्दबाजी में एक्सीडेंट्स होते हैं। Let me come to Mr. Das. Looking at this larger picture right now, in terms of you've seen promoter-led India up close. why is family run so often framed as the opposite of professionally run? What's your litmus test for true professionalization in a family enterprise today?
Well, I would say that we need to see more Indian businesses bringing in professionals who actually can rise to the top. In other words, like the Tatas have done, finally, after hundreds of years or so. So really, that is the maturing ultimately. The family should be at the board level. There should be a good governing board. The families protect their interests through the board, but let a professional, because then you can choose the best person in the world. It's possible your son is the best person in the world, but chances are there are a lot of good people out there that you can bring in. And so that culture, the important thing is to create a culture of succession. You know, when I joined Procter and Gamble, one of the first things I learned was that if you did not prepare a successor to your job, you wouldn't get promoted. So there was a huge premium put on training people.
Yes.
And you became a boss because you were training good people and you were rising in the company. Well, that's today. The family should think in that way. There are a few, but we need many more such companies. And then you'll avoid this succession issue.
Right.
And this is not to say that there are wonderful sons of families. There may be wonderful nephews.
Yes.
But let them compete with the best in the world.
Let me ask Mr. Parulekar and Mr. Chandubhai Virani, I want to swap these seats that you are in for a moment, just to understand how the mindset can be very different. So if I can ask you, Mr. Parulekar, how would you run Balaji Wafers? I don't know how familiar you are with the kind of company that Balaji Wafers is, but you can well imagine, if you had to run it for the next decade, one product category, mass retail, huge distribution, what would be your first move on the brand front or the tech front?
So I think Balaji Wafers has done an impeccable job over the last few decades in building a brand and the sheer distribution to the last store. And the power of distribution that Balaji Wafer has is unbeatable. And that's how traditional businesses have been created.
Right.
But if you look at the new D2C ventures which are coming, which are challenging the existing consumer businesses, they have realized that distribution is no longer your moat. Because now with your capabilities of your quick commerce, your capabilities of Amazon, you can beat the distribution by having direct to customer, as they call it, D2C.
Correct.
So embracing these new methods of distribution, embracing these new methods of, and even the changing customer preferences. I think people are getting far more health conscious. People are getting far more sensitive about, how much oil they're consuming, how much sugar they're consuming, whether that snack is, actually doing harm to me or it's good for me. I think there is a little bit of a sensitivity that is coming through. And the change is faster than you think. For example, a few years ago, a small car was the default car, but today it's a mini SUV, which is a default car. And it happened literally in front of our eyes.
True.
And I think that's the singular wave, distribution enabled through technology, along with your traditional mode of distribution, and moving towards the new age customer preferences are the two things I would do for Balaji Wafers.
चंदू भाई, आपने इनकी बात सुनी, वो क्या सजेस्ट कर रहे हैं बालाजी वेफर्स के लिए? ये कह रहे हैं कि मतलब आपको ज्यादा डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन पे ध्यान देना है जो टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन हो, जैसे एक D2C बिजनेसेस आज चलते हैं, वो सारी प्रैक्टिसेस आपको अडॉप्ट करनी है. मुझे नहीं पता आप अगर
de-risk yourself. I'm saying de-risk yourself because you have a great
already there
network. Yes, yeah.
तो जो नेटवर्क है वो रखना है, लेकिन मतलब आपको इसके आगे अगर बढ़ना है तो D2C जैसे बिजनेसेस चलाते हैं वैसे आपको करना है. आप क्या सोचते हैं सैफरन स्टेज के बारे में? उनके बिजनेस के बारे में शायद ना पता हो तो ऑफ कोर्स आई कैन आस्क मिस्टर परुलेकर टू एक्सप्लेन, बट एसेट लाइट जो एक्सपीरियंस लेड बिजनेस है, ये उनका बिजनेस है. व्हाट इज योर फर्स्ट ऑपरेटिंग डिसिप्लिन दैट यू वुड वांट टू ब्रिंग फ्रॉम स्नैक्स इंडस्ट्री टू द लॉन्गर स्टे इंडस्ट्री वेयर द वेकेशन होम्स आर? चंदू भाई, आप क्या सजेस्ट करेंगे सैफरन स्टेज के लिए, क्योंकि ये वेकेशन स्पेस में है?
So हम मैरियट है होम स्टेज के और लग्जरी विलास के, अभी that might help you.
Yes. So that's what I was trying to explain to Chandu bhai. Go ahead, sir.
नहीं, हम तो समय के साथ जो बदलाव करना है हम करते हैं, करेंगे, लेकिन अभी हमारा जो चल रहा है वो भी रखेंगे, और जो नई जो मार्केटिंग आ रही है, जो ऑनलाइन है, वो सारा हम काफी इसमें हमारा बढ़ोतरी हुई है
जी।
हमारी अभी जो ऑनलाइन की 200% ग्रोथ से चल रही है, लेकिन हमारा एक छोटा अभी शुरू किया है,
राइट।
और हम वो नया भी करेंगे और पुराना को भी परेशान ना हो, वो ध्यान रख के दोनों साइड हम आहिस्ते आहिस्ते स्लोली बढ़ेंगे,
जी।
क्योंकि हमने समय के साथ हम चल रहे हैं, जो हम चल रहे हैं शायद वो कंपनी कम चल रही हो, इसलिए तो हमारा नंबर 1 ग्रोथ है।
जी
और
बिल्कुल।
बिना टारगेट, बिना स्कीम, बिना डिस्काउंट, बिना डेबिट, तो हमारा ग्रोथ नंबर 1 चल रहा है, तो हम तो सारी समय के साथ समझदारी से चलते हैं,
जी बिल्कुल।
इसलिए ग्रोथ है हमारा।
So the growth is there, लेकिन अभी आगे क्या? Succession planning हो, अजय बग्गा, do public markets still conflate family ownership with weak governance? What has changed in the last 5 years that you think that the street should recognize right now?
No, India gets a discount, unfortunately, on governance. We are not as bad as some of the East Asians, but we are not great either. You saw with the airline case, you had such luminaries on the board of the airlines, and what disaster we had in December. I would look at the positive side. I'll give you an example. We were helping an Indian company buy out their MNC partners. And I was representing a foreign bank. It took us some 14 signatures. Very laboriously, I worked on it. I had the deal ready. And then a private sector bank head, family owned, you can say, he just called up and he says, here's X thousand rupees. You sign the paperwork later on. Same thing, I would say, if you look at the mortgage market, developer finance market, Deepak Parekh was really famous for this.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's a family office. He had professionalized. He really distributed wealth across the company, but they really worked on family in a family atmosphere. He could take the call. I would be giving 2,000 crores to a developer. I would have some 44 signatures and lien marks and all, and one call from HDFC treasurer. Okay, the money is coming to your account tomorrow morning.
Correct.
And all our work. So there is strength, but there is a patriarch issue.
Correct.
The Balaji wafers, if I can see his, I have done it. I've done it without an iPad. What are you guys coming in? And these guys coming in have messed up also royally. I have seen that case after case where the new guys have come and made a mess of well-run businesses. So the patriarch is right also, but otherwise the market will eat you up. And branding, I think we don't have anybody better than Gurcharan Das, but chota muh badi baat, I'll say this much. The more you spend on branding, it's always worth its weight in gold. I've seen that in a number of SMEs I have helped out.
Yes.
You spend on branding, that creates so much cushion for you in pricing, in bad times, everything. The proprietors don't believe in that. Neither technology nor in branding, they don't believe.
Right. So there is that little bit of a lag when it comes to family-run businesses. They move a little slower. But Mr. Das, this entire point that is being made on exactly how this passing of the baton, have you seen it up close in companies that you've worked with or known? Tell us from your own experience how that has panned out with that kind of professionalism in the boardroom as opposed to not having it in the boardroom.
Well, what separates great companies from not so great companies is that they have prepared from within when at least 2, 3, sometimes 4 individuals who could potentially take over. And I've seen this. It was GE at one point had it. At one point, Procter & Gamble had. So the problem was to choose one. You know that the other three would leave and they would become CEOs of of different companies. But the the important thing is that the best companies prepare people from within.
Yeah.
They don't say, oh, okay, the succession time aa gaya hai, let me hire somebody from outside.
Yes.
That's the wrong way to do it.
Right.
You prepare, you create a culture of developing. That also motivates the youngest person in the company, because that person feels one day he can be heading the company.
Yes.
And so it creates a culture of excellence, of training, and it's a culture that I have seen with my own eyes.
Yes.
And I would
But
say Indian companies could
yes,
learn a
certainly.
lot
But
from
isn't
this.
it?
And the other point here is that a family, there's a lot of value in a family-run company,
Sure.
but eventually, the historical record is that you with a family-run company will always remain comparatively smaller. That is to say, you look at the big brands in the world, almost 99% are brands that are run by professional managers. The family, if it's involved, is on the board.
Right.
It's not running the show.
Right. So,
And this is what
but
distinguishes
I wonder whether
Japanese and
this
American companies.
why
Sorry.
this constriction is happening. That's an important piece as well, Mr. Parulekar. Many next generation heirs, they prefer to build their own ventures. What can these legacy firms copy from the founder-led startups to attract them again? Because there are these ESOP-like incentives or venture pods or ring fencing of the digital bets. What is it going to take to keep them at it, to keep them at the legacy firms, to ensure that that growth happens? Because clearly a huge legacy has been built which needs to be taken forward. And there is this one approach that our family-run businesses have taken, which is to pass it down from one generation to another.
How fortunate would I have been had I inherited a family business? I would have added a couple of zeros after that net worth, and probably passed on to my next generation. Having said that, being a first generation entrepreneur, I think it's extremely tough to create that generational wealth, for your future generations. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we as first generation entrepreneurs face is the fact that we can't let go. And I find myself, despite being a rank outsider to the business of hospitality, I used to be, believe it or not, I used to be a hacker for 20 years, cybersecurity professional in EY. And last 10 years, I'm a hospitality brand company. And I find it extremely difficult to let go. And I think that's my singular challenge. Whether I infuse top hotel talent into the company, whether my daughter or my son decide to come over and actually pick up the reins. We are a husband-wife duo, so it's actually a family-run business by itself. But I think the willingness to step aside and the humility to accept that there could be better talent and some smarter talent coming in with a better worldview. I don't think I have yet reached that level of if I can say. I haven't self-actualized so much. I need time. I think the business is also so early in the game.
Correct.
That I need to mature. I need to take it to a few thousand crores before I
So
can
you're
actually
so concentrated
pass
on that
it.
that you're not thinking of going that far just yet. But Dr. Sridharan, there's this data that we're looking at from the report. It's showing strong growth optimism. But there is the cautious tech adoption as well. So what is the board level conversation that moves these firms from scale without breaking the culture of the organization?
So I think, Vikram, it's more before culture. I think it's a FOMO there. A lot of boards have been discussing AI without even understanding how digital works. So sometimes it's also the nature of the self-selection bias of boards. You don't get onto top family company boards without knowing the promoter for a very, very long time. I mean, with all the respect to the market regulators, those rules and regulations can be tick marked. But the reality is there independence of independent director? I mean, I have a big, big question mark on India. But having said that, there are two other ones that I want to defend the family business on. 364 out of the Nifty 500 companies are actually largely owned by family businesses. So to Mr. Das's point about professionally run companies not reaching scale, I would dispute there. Indian companies and promoters have deep risk-taking abilities. The very fact that a lot of innovation in sectors, including the sector that we're speaking in, media, telecom, all of those have come rather from Indian giants, not necessarily professionally or institutionally held companies.
Yes.
Also, professional CEOs, I see hanker after tenure extension. I mean, Ajay would have enough instances in financial services where the CEOs hanker after extension, they become 65, 70. And if we can celebrate all those,
yes,
why do we actually blame the family businesses or the promoters? What I call the Markandeya syndrome. They think they're immortal forever. And I think most of the Indian promoters don't have a hobby at all. So if you ask them to retire at 70, the last 50 years, they've had one purpose, building a scale of an institution. I mean, wealth beyond wealth, for them, it's about legacy. And they don't realize they really don't have a hobby. And their second and third generation have come into the business and they're actually stifling them. So I think it cuts both ways between family businesses and professionals as well.
Fair enough. Mr. Das has a rebuttal to that. Mr. Das, go ahead, sir.
Just saying, to this point, that you're just comparing the thing in India. I'm looking at the world. We don't have global giants in India. I can't think of one global brand name of an Indian brand name. And the fault, I don't totally fault that to the business world. I fault that to our policy, that we haven't opened up. Hopefully now, with this trade deal with the US, EU, UK, we will open up.
Right.
We will be forced to open up, bring down tariffs. And if we can now at least begin the process, I would like to see, before I die, one Indian company becomes a global brand name, like Samsung or Sony,
yes,
or TikTok. I mean, these are non-American, non-Western names.
Right.
And so what I was just thinking is that scale. I've seen very few family-run companies. You see, that's what differentiates.
Of course.
The family tradition continues in Italy and France.
Yes.
They have comparatively smaller companies.
No,
but professionally, CEOs are in US, Germany, Japan.
So if there is that one
company,
company, since we're running out of time, I want to quickly go across to Ajay Bagga. Do you see that one company that is going to be that big global brand name for us that Mr. Das is talking about?
I think too, again, I'm from financial services, so I'll take that. I think Kotak has a good chance, HDFC.
All right.
I have high hopes on Uday Kotak and the HDFC management. I think these can become top 10, top 20 in their field.
We hope it happens soon. But this has been a very insightful discussion. It's clear that the story of India's family businesses is still getting written. Yes, with resilience, a lot of reinvention and a deep sense of legacy, which is shaping every chapter of this playbook, as it were, that Indian family-run businesses have followed. But a big thank you to our guests joining us this evening with their insights, Gurcharan Das, Ajay Bagga, Devendra Parulekar, and Dr. Sridharan Chandubai Virani, Srinivas Kuchibotla, who we couldn't connect with. But thank you indeed all for joining us and being part of this important conversation. And we will keep tracking Indian firms, how they are run, the governance issues, the kind of tech adoption that is happening all across the board. That's part of the nature of the business that Indians do. How is it going to be run? Is it going to be professionally run? Is it going to be family run? And can you really make out the difference between the two kinds of companies? Globally, are the stakes rising with the changing times? It's a piece that we're tracking very closely. But for now, that's where we're wrapping it up. I'm Vikram Oza, from me and the team on The Big Question. Good evening.